What's good? It's Woog. Oscar Valdez just shut the critics up, shut everybody who knew what they were talking about up with a tremendous upset win over Miguel Berchelt, who had defended his 130-pound title successfully 7 times. He's been champ. He's had that WBC belt for the past 4 years. 7 successful title defenses, Miguel Berchelt. And the narrative coming into this fight was you've got a 130-pound fighter who's probably stronger than the former 126 featherweight champ, Oscar Valdez, coming up to 130 to fight Berchelt. They thought Berchelt had the size advantage, and he did have the size advantage, 5'7" versus 5'6", 5'5", and had just been competing at that weight class for a longer period of time. And you can see them as they're standing across from each other that Berchelt's a slightly bigger fighter. These things were supposed to be relevant. He was thought to be the better athlete over Oscar Valdez. And so the idea was this is going to be a firefight early. Anything could happen because these guys are both bringing it. But then when we get to the middle rounds and so forth, the size is going to start to matter. And, Berchelt's basically going to start overwhelming Valdez with volume, the way that he breaks his other opponents down. Keep in mind, like 31 to 33 out of his 37 wins came via stoppage, knockout. So Berchelt's been getting people out of there. But they were also cognizant of the fact that Berchelt's not the greatest defensive fighter. He gets hit. Now, Oscar Valdez, again, former featherweight champ, he's now had a couple fights at 130, but now he's going after the big dog, Miguel Berchelt. And, he hurt Berchelt in that 4th round so badly that the fight could have been stopped. People wouldn't have had too much of an issue if it was stopped. Even as the bell was sounding at the end of the round, he being Valdez, landed one more long straight right hand for good measure. Landed cleanly. So Berchelt was extremely wobbled, clearly on unsteady legs, kind of short-circuiting, hopping around the ring. Everybody's looking at him like, oh, this guy is not well. Even when the ref breaks the fighters up and pushes them both back, it's Berchelt who clumsily goes staggering backwards. It was not a great moment for Berchelt at all. But he somehow gets out of the round. It's almost like anytime Valdez wanted to open up with another hard left hook, he would land cleanly upside Berchelt's temple, and Berchelt would start going haywire again. But Berchelt makes it out of the round. And then in the next couple rounds, he's kind of clearing his senses. And then it looks like Valdez is starting to weaken, and Berchelt's starting to pick up the volume. And it started looking a little like Cotto versus Margarito 1. Or any fight where one guy is getting off to a good lead could even almost stop the opponent, and then the fight starts to slow down. The guy starts to walk down the more peppy fighter who got off to the hot start. So Berchelt starts to land some hard power shots, and then you see Valdez start to back up a little. It's like, whoa, wait a second here. But then a couple rounds later, Valdez badly hurts Berchelt again with another left hook upside the head. By the way, Valdez has a very underrated jab. The commentators, Tim Bradley and Andre Ward, they were making the point that Valdez doesn't need to show his power, show his right hand, one of his money punches, left hook being the other, but he doesn't have to unleash with ferocity in the 1st or 2nd round. What are you doing? Keep something in the holster. Give him a different look. Give him the jab. Change levels, feint, jab, box him for a couple rounds, and then show him your money punches. Because if you throw your load and you don't finish this guy, the bigger fighter, or hurt him in the 1st or 2nd round, but you've expended all this energy, you're going to be in trouble down the line because you've already thrown your money punch, and now he's going to be able to pick up his volume and work you over, like most of the people were expecting him to do. But to his credit, Valdez arguably won 2 out of 3, if not the first 3 rounds of this fight, even before he badly hurt Berchelt in the 4th. So by the time Berchelt kind of recovers, I don't think he ever 100% recovered from that first time being hurt in the 4th. But he starts to kind of rally back, and then he gets hurt just as badly again in like the 8th or something. But he makes it out of this round, and they're talking about should they stop the fight. I think even Tim Bradley said, hey, if I'm this fighter's corner, he's taking too much damage because he was looking really bad at the end of that round, that latest round. I would stop the fight, but they don't stop the fight. It continues, and then Berchelt runs into one of the most devastating power punches you're going to see somebody walk into so blindly. Because he was so hurt, he clumsily staggers into a devastating power shot. End of the day. Scary moment after that knockout, but Berchelt seems to be okay. He was motionless for multiple minutes on the floor, to where even Valdez, who had just pulled out the upset, his biggest career moment after all this work and, you know, this whole path he's been on, he even has to temper his celebration because of how bad the situation in the ring is looking as Berchelt laid there motionless. But he appears to be okay. And now this appears to be leading perfectly into a showdown between Oscar Valdez, the WBC belt holder, against challenger Shakur Stevenson. So Stevenson hasn't fought anybody near the level of Valdez, in fairness. He's fought Joet Gonzalez. He's fought a couple, you know, lesser names. So now he, like almost equally young Devin Haney, are starting to up their competition. Now, I don't think that they're bringing them up too slowly. I think that you should take your time to some degree. I'm not one of these guys who thinks Devin Haney is in some way behind schedule. I think Teofimo Lopez took a hell of a gamble and it paid off. But, you know, first of all, Teofimo's a couple years older than Haney, but also, like, Teofimo just took a risk that I wouldn't necessarily even recommend for most fighters in that situation, because that could have gone really badly for him. But he took the gamble. It paid off against the, you know, the then champ, king of the division, Lomachenko. But Shakur Stevenson has been brought along, and he's been looking, you know, as good as you want these prospects to look as you're bringing them up. But Valdez, that would be an interesting fight. Now, a lot of people, I think, will assume that Shakur Stevenson is going to be able to control the distance and range a lot better than Berchelt was able to. He's not as susceptible to just getting hit with power punches. You know, CompuBox stat-wise, Berchelt's defense has been lacking for some time, and this wasn't a new revelation. But we just haven't seen anybody exploit it, at least recently, in the way that Oscar Valdez was able to. So I say all that to say, Miguel Berchelt ain't Shakur Stevenson defensively. But we'll dive a lot deeper into that hopeful Shakur Stevenson, or should I say Oscar Valdez versus Shakur Stevenson showdown for Valdez's WBC title. I really hope that this fight is seamlessly able to be made. So we'll do a proper preview and breakdown of that matchup. But man, this was a stunner, because I'm sure Valdez felt all types of disrespected, because all of the experts were really coming in saying, hey, it might be interesting for the first several rounds, and both of these guys are down to gun it, but Berchelt's going to be the guy who comes out on top. You know, he's the bigger guy. He's, you know, the better athlete. And that, again, they kept on saying the better athlete, which, you know, what they might not have calculated was who's the sharper puncher, like whose punches are looking like lasers in there. And I would say that the puncher that was throwing the lasers was Valdez. It looked like they were getting there a little crisper. And, you know, for a guy who was lacking in the reach, his hands looked like they were getting there pretty damn quickly. So I don't think that if there was a hand speed gap, I think that it favored Valdez. And I don't think that we all expected it to that degree. But man, the president of Mexico calls Berchelt, you know, wishing him, good luck before the fight. Oscar Valdez just did what he had to do to overcome being, again, Berchelt was like a 4-1 favorite going into this fight. I'm not saying they were counting Valdez out, but they were definitely saying that Berchelt is and should be the clear favorite to win this fight. I will say Richard Dwyer advised, or at least didn't advise, but told you that he was going to play it towards the odds and make it a value play on the Valdez side, because he was such a heavy underdog and shouldn't have been that big an underdog because of Berchelt's defensive liabilities. I'm suggesting that those same liabilities don't appear to exist with Shakur Stevenson. But yeah, let me know what you think about or thought about that fight, what you think about the division. I would like to paint other hypotheticals at 130 involving Gervonta Davis and others, but promotionally, that doesn't appear to be a possibility right now. But please, leave your comments in the comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.